Hello everyone! Moira Bronzebeard has been given the aid from the Time Walkers to send us to the time when the Dark Iron Clan lost its emperor. In doing so, she hopes that she can use everything that came from that defeat. The good, the bad, seeing the truth for ourselves, as with World of Warcraft's 20th anniversary, Blackrock Depths has been turned into a raid, with some of the dungeon's greatest bosses making a return, while Moira gives us her insight on the history of the Dark Islands.
Sorcerer Thane Thaurissan first summoned Ragnarso during the War of the Three Hammers. He doomed the Dark Iron Clan to servitude.
The War of Three Hammers, they called it, where in the end, their Sorcerer Thane unleashed an epic spell, accidentally summoning Ragnarso into Azeroth, creating the Blackrock Mountain, scorching the surrounding lands. And from that point on, the Dark Islands lived in servitude to the Firelords within the mountain, which would see plenty of other visitors making it their base. You might recall going in to clear out the Dark Horde, or Nefarian and his nefarious experiments, or the influence of the Old Gods and the Twilight Hammer, or even venture into the Multicore itself sent Ragnarso back to the elemental plane of fire. But for our history of the Dark Islands, we need to go deep below into the mountain's depths, into a dungeon that's, they just don't make them this way anymore. It has a special nostalgic place for a lot of WoW players, as so many hours have been burned away here as we adventure through the capital of the Dark Island Dwarfs, carved away through the great halls, facing bosses, completing quests and achievements while saving the princess. Shortcuts that were unlocked by getting keys, or inviting a rogue friend, or simply having professions that could blow open locks. This place is absolutely huge, with different paths to follow, so much so that they later decided to split the dungeon into different sections for the group finder with its own teleportation system. But if you wish, the path is still open. You can still go in yourself and explore to your heart's content. As we venture to the Blackrock Mountain, past the big doors guarding the entrance, we walk into larger-than-life halls, into a vast opening, the fiery center where we could pick many different paths into many different adventures. We want to go lower though, past the massive chains held up by great dwarven statues, into the depths of the mountain. Now say that you slip, or you try to take the shortcut and fail, or maybe an unfortunate dip in the lava, then you'll be lucky enough to meet the spirits of Franklorn Forthright, one of the chief architects that we can thank for creating this beautiful city. I had no choice, or so I thought. I would endure the destruction of Thaurissan and stand by the side of my king and his people. Under the control of Ragnarso, King Dagran Thaurissan tore out the heart of this mountain and erected Blackrock Spire. We worked tirelessly to build a dwarven city mightier than any city or fortress that came before or would come after. I stood by and watched the corruption of Ragnarso seep through the hearts and minds of the Dark Iron Nation. This once honorable race, driven to madness, to evil. When the construction of the spire was complete, my will to live amongst my people gave way. I passed as a hero of the new nation of Dark Islands. This tomb was placed here, at the entrance to the city that I planned and built, in honor of my efforts. His great hammer, Ironfell, was then handed down to the new chief architect, Phineas Darkfire, a man of despicable motive and little talents. So the spirits wants us to reclaim his hammer and put it somewhere safe. But Phineas' reputation is not actually his fault. It was his daughter, Fenella Darkfire, that presented stolen plans to the Emperor in her father's name, in order to protect her reputation, as his was already tarnished amongst the other architects. He went along with the deception, leading to his demise at our hands, while his daughter would become one of Moira's premier architects. Still, her father is slain, and Ironfell is then placed at the Shrine of Thaurissan, in the hands of the statue erected in Franklorn's honor. At least, after we kill Pyromancer Lorgrain, a former member of the Earthen Ring turned Twilight Hammer, for some mysterious reason, nor is it entirely explained why he has such interest in the memory of Franklorn Forthright. This once rare spawn has been turned into a permanent encounter, and in the revamped raid, he hangs out in front of the king while they're debating what to do. The Twilight Hammer Ambassador is all about the end of things, old gods, flames of the Firelords, whereas the Shadowforged Senator, they think this is nonsense. What will be left to rule if they go down this road of destruction?
Thank you for removing those foolish senators.
Lorgrain and the Twilights seem to have the Emperor's favor. After taking out the Spellslinger Tauren, we placed Ironfell in its rightful place. When done, a compartment opened up with the Master Key, the Shadowforge Key, courtesy of Franklorn F. Fortright. And should anyone try to remove the hammer now, the whole thing would shatter apart, lost forever, no one able to use its power. The Shadowforge Key on a keyring, it opens up doors previously closed, and perhaps most importantly, it also opens the Shadowforge lock, which clears the direct pathway between the east and the west garrison by closing off the door, which provides a much more direct path to the leader. On the way, we can decide to take on General Angerforge, an expert on dwarven military history and tactics.
Divide and conquer!
But not the most brilliant mind when it comes to politics. He incurred Emperor Dagran Thaurissan's fury by writing a scathing treatise on his clan's failures in past conflicts. Politics and conquests, they're two different arenas. In the revamped raid, they've played Angerforge in the Lyceum, where in the past we had to maneuver through endless amounts of dark islands while lighting the braziers and opening up the door. However, a Lyceum, it describes a hall for public lectures or discussions, but as Moira explains,
The Lyceum. A mockery of its name. No grand debates took place here. It was used for marshalling the Dark Iron military, as was most of Blackrock Depths.
On the opposite side, we ride into the Manufactory, where a whole bunch of golems are being produced by Golem Lord Argomach. The Dark Iron had an obsession with immortality, which drove him to forge enchanted constructs in his own image. Not only that, apparently the real Argomach has been slain years ago, and what stands before us is only a shadow, some sort of Dark Iron creation. Dark magic that allowed the Golem Lord to return several times in vessels for his spirits, a concept now taken further in the revamp, as now we kill him at the start and then the real fight begins. His 4 massive golems activate: electricity, poison, fire and the arcane, with his spirit passing through them, empowering their abilities. After a fight like that, who couldn't use a drink? A good old Dark Iron Ale. And what better place to get one than at the Grim Guzzler?
Everyone, get in here!
Plugger Spazring, gnome turned leper gnome, sought a new life after the fall of Gnomenagon and set up base right here as the Tavern's barkeep. The ale flows while the elite Tarn chieftains sometimes show up to play their tunes. Ribley Screw Spigot is hiding away from his family, while you've probably been here once or twice during the Brewfest festival. Plenty of things that go down at the Grim Guzzler, but one of the things that I always found really cool is that aim of the game is to get through the bar, right? And we need to open up the door in order to continue our adventure, but doing so can be done in many different ways. One option is to just start bashing heads. But why do that when you could also steal the key out of Spazring's pockets? No rogue in your team? Well, how about starting a little riot? Steal or buy enough ale to get Private Rocknut drunk out of his mind and he'll start the party. Or help out Mistress Nekmara make a love potion as the Private is no longer interested in her, and after giving her something to make him change his mind, these two will quietly excuse themselves for a private party, leaving the door wide open.
Even the bars were filled with fighting and shouting. And not the fun kind, mind you.
After taking out Phalanx, we walk on into the Chamber of Enchantment with Ambassador Flamelash. Flamelash ascended his rank for his unwavering service to Ragnarso. This depraved being initially despised his dwarven allies, but he has come to respect their penchant for destruction. As a show of solidarity, Flamelash guards the Chamber of Enchantment, a sacred location used by the dwarves to empower their weaponry. Or at least he did. In the revamp, they put him to guard the throne room instead of Magmus, the molten giant who was funny enough charged there by Flamelash to stand guards. After taking out Flamelash in the raid, beyond the room where they enchant their weapons, we find the Summoner's Tomb.
Some dwarves served their Firelord willingly to power their own ambitions, their own cruelty. Others, out of loyalty towards the Thaurissan line.
Sorcerer Thane Thaurissan was not alone when he performed the spell work that brought in Ragnarso. These 7 were his most powerful allies. Allies that damned their entire clan to enslavement. Although the 7 perished during the ritual, their restless spirits still linger in Blackrock Depths, cursed to serve their elemental master and the current Dark Iron ruler. quite a bit more violent than Snow White's 7 dwarfs, which each swapping in and out of corporal form, but winning our challenge does set their spirits free. Now here we could decide to turn right and pick up a core fragment to attune ourselves to the molten core. The big portal in front of us actually leads into the raid, into Ragnaros's fiery lair, but as much fun as it might have been to clear Blackrock Depths every single time that we had to go into the raid, doing a quest for Lothul's Riftwaker, it gives us an easier access point. At one point, you had to jump through his magical window and just trust that you'd be teleported into the molten core, which did not always go so well, so eventually the elf itself got the ability to teleport us by simply talking to him. Back in Blackrock Depths, our road to the Emperor had us venture through the earlier mentioned Army of Dark Irons at the Lyceum, opening up the massive door by lighting the brazier. Magnus is taken out, revealing the very heart of the city, the Imperial Seat, where Dagran is holding court.
Prepare to meet your doom at the hands of Ragnaros's most powerful servant.
One of the dialogues is bugged out on the LFR, but I'm pretty sure that the Emperor, despite Moira's wishes, decides to go for the world annihilation, with the flames of Ragnaros backing him up.
I am the Emperor!
Enough! I will finish this! By fire be purged!
Moira fights at the Emperor's side in both versions, but in the past there was a bit of a debate whether or not he had ensorcelled her. Not hard to imagine, considering that they put her in a Princess Leia outfit. In the new version, she's dressed more in dark iron garbs, more in line with the story that we have these days, which is that Moira actually fell in love with Dagran. Growing up, her father Magni had never shown her respect, simply because she was born a woman. Her time with the Dark Irons was the complete opposite. And these so-called heroes, they came in and they took out not only the leader of the Dark Irons, not only her husband, but also the father of her unborn child.
Spare my son! Pathetic!
No! Thaurissan was a great and honourable dwarf! You ruined my life! And the life of my unborn child!
Moira would go on manipulating events from within the mountain, bringing heroes to clear out the Dark Horde, clear out Ragnaros and Molten Core, liberate the Dark Irons from their enslavement, to then try and claim Ironforge and all the story that followed. But we're not quite done in the Blackrock Depths, nor is Moira quite done reflecting on the past. Going back to the start, the very first boss of the new raid is Lord Rokor, who originally patrolled the halls of the law. A being that was supposed to be in the Molten Core, but he loathed the scheming and backstabbing of his fellow fire elementals, so he purposely pissed off the Firelord, causing him to be expelled, landing his job of guarding the Blackrock Depths. Another section that's been closed off near Rokor, that is the detention block.
The Dark Iron Dwarves enslaved many to work their mines and supply the war machine. When there weren't enough workers left, they sent their fellow Dark Iron instead.
Slaves and prisoners were held here. One of the most famous or well-known prisoner amongst classic players, that would be Marshal Windsor. He was investigating what was happening at Stormwind's court, and eventually discovered that the Black Dragon Onyxia had infiltrated the House of Nobles, disguised as Lady Katrana Prestor, taken by the Dark Irons before he could make his report. He was stripped of his legendary hammer Ironfoe, which coincidentally was forged by Frank Lorne Forthright. So you had this Ironfoe that we used to get the key, and then this Ironfoe that's been in Windsor's family for generations and has now been taken by the Emperor. So the Alliance, they went in as part of their Onyxia attunement questline, the quest that they needed to do in order to raid Onyxia's lair, freeing Windsor from High Interrogator Gersten's grasp. Once a noble, the Twilight Hammer cultist proudly calls the blood-curdling cries of her prisoners while being tortured her symphony of screams, and she's always eager to add another voice to the chorus. Windsor released, put him on the road home to Stormwind to reveal the corruption within at the cost of his own life.
Shadowforge held many secrets, even to me, its Queen Regent. Like what lies beyond the Dark Iron Highway. Even with its guardian slain, the door remains closed.
The monstrous molten giant Bilgar guards the mysterious door in both the dungeon and the raid, and the mystery of what lies beyond has been plaguing the mind of adventurers since Classic. It must be something worth guarding if Ragnarso himself pulled the giant from the heart of the Firelands to put him here, but sadly, no answers given.
The lords of the Firelands cared little for the Dark Irons. They would torment any they could.
Lord Incendius is here to guard the bridge in the raid, and whereas Rokor wanted to be transferred to the depths, Incendius was sent here by his mentor, Baron Geddon, as Incendius became far too powerful. Worried that he might usurp him, Geddon sent him here to guard the Dark Iron Dwarf's fabled Black Anvil. An anvil needed to craft the Dark Iron items, but in the raid we have Panzer hammering away at it. We know the tanky rare spawn as the Invincible. In this moment, he is still very much convincible, willing to repair our gear.
All the treasury went to the Dark Iron's endless wars. I even offered my own jewellery to the cause. How Dagran smiled. Martial law. A people at war. The Dark Irons felt cursed that violence was the only choice. I thought I could change them. Change him. Not all the Dark Irons of Shadowforge City agreed with serving Ragnarso. I wished for those voices to be heard. To gain power. Momentum. I was a right fool.
A side that we don't often see from the Dark Iron Dwarfs. On the outside, they were just hostile, pure enemies and a threat to the world, but from within, there were those not down with their leadership, but what could they do while under the yoke of their emperor, or even Ragnarso the Firelords?
I wanted Dagran to be an emperor, not a servant. I wanted to rule together. But I know how this story ends, champion. And I can't bear to watch it.
Sadly, again, one of the conversations is currently bugged out, but the way that I understand this tale that's being told is that we get a bit more nuance when it comes to the story of Moira and the Dark Iron Clan. Her time within the mountain, a part of the story that we haven't massively seen explored in depth before, is now further explained.
I won't defend the things the Dark Irons did. What I did. The blood on our hands. I was blinded by my hatred for my father, blinded by my pride. I wanted more. At first, the Dark Irons were just tools for my own ambition. And then I was blinded by love. But Dagran would have sooner burned this clan to the ground than accept peace. In utter defeat, we were freed by our enemies and found our place within the Alliance. As equals. The Dark Irons, the Bronzebeards, and the Wildhammers. One people, once more. And my wee Dagran, my son. A symbol of our unity, and the legacy my husband never got to see. Dagran Thaurissan II, named after his father. I didn't want folks forgetting where he came from, the bad, the good, everything. I just wish Dagran was here to see it. The Dark Irons free, the leader our son is becoming. I'm sure he would be proud.
And there ends the tale of the Blackrock Depths, both the new raid and the old massive dungeon. Even though, if we really wanted to, I'm sure that we could sit down and gush a couple more hours about rare spawns and shortcuts and nooks and crannies and other encounters, but I think we'll be going on for long enough, so I really hope you enjoyed. If you did, make sure to subscribe if you want to be kept up to date for future uploads. New videos every Monday. And for now, on to next time. See ya!